Okay, in today's video I'm going to be doing a extractor spring upgrade and an ejector spring upgrade on a Spike's tactical bolt carrier group, this one, the nickel boron one. This is a Palmetto, this bolt carrier group is a Palmetto State Armory bolt carrier group, an 8620 steel carrier with a Carpenter 158 bolt. This is only here because I'm going to take the extractor out and compare what Palmetto uses for an extractor spring to what Spike uses. I previously did a comparison video where I compared the Spike's Tactical Bolt Carrier Group and the Bravo Company. So if you look at my previous videos and you take a look at that one, you'll see in one section of the video where I actually take the extractors out of the bolts and I compare the spring in the Spikes to the spring in the Bravo Company extractor. The Bravo Company extractor spring is a 5-coil spring. Spikes uses a 4-coil spring, hence the size difference. A solid upgrade that you can do to any bolt carrier group that you may own is to upgrade the springs in it. And the best spring on the market at this point is the 5-coil extra power spring. That's what this is right here. This is a 5-coil spring. This spring is made by tacticalsprings.com, or their parent company is Sprinco, Sprinco.com. That's all they do is make these components. So they are very knowledgeable in these areas, and most manufacturers get their components from Sprinco. Bravo Company gets their 5-coil springs from Sprinco, and that's what they use exclusively in their bolt carrier groups. It's one of the reasons their bolt carrier groups are so good. They just use all top-notch components. I feel that the Spike's Tactical bolt carrier groups are excellent and they work excellent, but there is room for improvement, and I think the room for improvement is upgrading the springs. So they are the same quality springs used by the Bravo Company, and that's what we're going to do today. So what do I have in these packages? This is a 5-coil spring. It is a chrome silicon extra power spring that's cryogenically treated. Probably the best extractor spring on the market. These are Viton O-rings and extractor inserts. Now, if you've ever taken apart a Bravo Company bolt carrier group and taken apart the extractor, you'll see that there's a 5-coil spring in the extractor, but there's no O-ring. Bravo Company says you don't need an O-ring on those springs, but they give you one if you buy a bolt carrier group from them. It's just not installed. On the other end of the spectrum, most other companies, if you take apart their bolt and take out the extractor, you'll see a 3 or 4-coil spring, and you'll see a black O-ring installed. And the O-ring's necessary because the spring just is not strong enough. So on the 5-coil springs, you don't really need an O-ring according to Bravo Company and their testing. According to Sprinco, you should put an O-ring on it. So two different schools of thought on O-rings and the 5-coil spring. So I'll let you guys decide on what you decide to do. I'm going to experiment shooting without an O-ring, and then I'm going to install an O-ring, and hopefully later on I can report back and let you guys know if you really should put an O-ring on it. Sprinco does say that with the 5-coil spring you should not use a defender ring. So that's what they say. the spring is too strong for a Defender rubber insert or rubber spring. Last item down here on this list, this is a chrome silicon moly plated cryogenically processed bolt ejector spring. So I'm actually going to be installing this 5-coil spring in the extractor and this chrome silicon ejector spring. So I'm gonna get to taking apart these bolt carrier groups and taking the extractors out so we can actually take a look at what's installed. Alright, I've got both extractors removed from both the Palmetto State Armory bolt carrier group as well as the Spikes Tactical Nickel Boron bolt carrier group. The Spikes is on the right and the Palmetto State Armory is on the left. You can see that roughly the height is the same on both of these, and they both have a Viton O-ring. So it's probably safe to assume that both of these springs are 4-coil springs. I'm going to remove them. That's going to be the next step well, I'm going to remove the Spikes. I'm not going to remove the Palmetto because I'm not upgrading that one. I only have it here just for comparison to see if it was different from the Spikes Tactical, and it doesn't appear to be. It appears to be a identical style spring with an identical style O-ring. Now, I don't know who Palmetto, Palmetto buys their bolt carrier groups from somebody else, and where they get their extractor springs from, I don't know. There's a lot of OEM stuff that goes on in the business, and a lot of companies who manufacture products for these other major companies, they're pretty tight-lipped on who they make product for. So you kind of have to gather information by word of mouth or by third party, and it may or may not be reliable. So I'm hesitant to say that these springs are identical or they all come from Sprinco, because unfortunately, I don't know for sure. So anyway, so the next step here, I'm going to remove let's get this one out of the mix. And the O-ring just sits on the top. And you can see what that looks like. Now what you probably can't see is there's a little black extractor spring insert that the spring goes around. So you have to remove the spring and remove the extractor insert. As far as I know, there aren't really any significant differences with the black inserts. I know I can share some more information. I've taken apart some older bolt carrier groups that had blue extractor spring inserts. And at one point in time, I believe the AR rifles used blue and the M4s, the carbines, used black spring inserts. Nowadays, I think they're all black. Now, was there any difference? I doubt it, but who knows? I'm not that intimate with the details at this point. So pretty much everything you're going to see today is going to be a black extractor spring insert, if that makes any sense or any. Alright, so I'm going to remove this and I'm going to come back because I need a special pliers for this project. Alright, I removed the extractor spring and the black insert from the Spikes extractor. You can use a pliers. You just want to be very careful because you don't want to just yank on it, because then you'll stretch the spring out. So a wide flat pair of pliers that You can just kind of grip onto the spring and kind of twist it and wiggle it back and forth until the insert in the spring pops out. Would be best. Of course, if you're replacing it with a new spring and you don't care about the old one, I guess it doesn't really matter. So on the left, you can see what I removed from the Spikes Tactical Extractor. That would be a 4-coil spring with the black extractor insert. And on the right is the new Sprinco 5-coil spring. So you can tell, there is quite a good size difference on that. And I've like I showed you previously, I actually have a package with new black extractor inserts, and I'm going to use one of those with the new spring and insert it into the Spikes extractor itself. Alright, this is the 5-coil Sprinco spring with the black extractor insert installed. Now the 5-coil spring, one end of the spring is larger than the other end, and that's a little different from the 4-coil spring I just removed. So it's very similar in appearance to like a disconnector spring in your fire control group, where one end is larger than the other end. So the large end is the end you insert the black extractor insert, and that's the end that actually goes into the extractor itself. So something to keep in mind. The little package the spring comes in does say that, so you just have to make sure that you install it correctly. Alright, I've got the 5-coil extractor spring installed and the new black extractor spring insert as well. It is a tight fit, and if you're doing this, it's probably good to have some needle nose. And basically what I did was I used the needle nose like this and slipped it inside, gripped the spring, and kind of turned it as I forced it down in there. You want to make sure it's fully seated, or you might have problems reassembling your bolt. Now on the left, this is the Palmetto State Armory extractor. I removed the O-ring just so you can see the height difference between the 4-coil and the 5-coil spring. I also noticed that the spring material used on the Palmetto bolt carrier group is nowhere near as thick as the Sprinco material. So I don't think Sprinco makes the springs used in the Palmetto. That's just an assumption based on my observation. Also the 4-coil that was removed from the Spikes does not resemble the 4-coil that's in the Palmetto either. So would appear to be different manufacturers, but that's just an observation. Alright, so moving on. I'm not going to use a O-ring on this 5-coil spring. Bravo Company does not recommend it, and I'm going to try it without it and see how that works. Now next up, I'm going to replace the ejector spring, and to do that, move these components out of the way. Here's the Spikes bolt. Of course, to do that, you'll probably have seen this tool that I've used in other videos. This is specifically to hold down the ejector so you can pop out the roll pin and remove the ejector and the spring. Now this can be you can purchase this from Brownells for about $20 or so, give or take. And it kind of works like this. You slide your bolt in like so, and you screw this down, and what it does is it compresses the ejector and relieves the tension on the roll pin, and then you can easily remove the roll pin. And of course, you've got to get this positioned so the roll pin is visible and is not blocked by this tool. So it's probably right about there. Alright, and we've got the ejector all the way compressed, and I have easy access to the roll pin. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that out and remove the actual ejector and get at the spring. So I'll be back in a moment. Alright, using a 1/16 punch and a hammer, we can punch that roll pin out, and then we can slowly unscrew our tool, and we can remove our ejector. And the ejector spring is up in there, and sometimes you need to tap the bolt to get the spring out. Well, I'm going to get the spring out and I'll be back. Okay, it didn't want to come out there, probably because it had a little bit of oil or grease on it. So I got a needle and put a needle in there and help me pull it out. So this is the stock ejector spring right next to the ejector. And I don't know who it's made by, obviously. And here is the ejector spring provided by, of course it wants to keep rolling, Sprinco. The size, the length, the diameter appears to be the same. There is a color variance, and I believe that is because this is a stainless steel ejector spring, and this is the chrome silicon moly plated cryogenic processed ejector spring. This spring is also the same type of spring that's used for your safety selector. So if you wanted to use this as your safety selector spring, you could do that as well. And of course it's just going to keep rolling around. I don't have anything else to add about the spring. The installation is fairly simple. Actually, before I install it, I'm going to put some machine gunner's lube on it. This is a little battle bottle that Sprinco sent me with my spring order. And this kind of is the type of bottle that I would keep in the grip or you know, on the weapon, so I have a little bit of oil always with the weapon. And I've talked about that in several other videos, and I didn't give any examples of what I would carry, and it's basically a little teeny bottle like this. So it's not a lot of oil, but if you're out in the field and you need to get some oil on your bolt or something, or your bolt carrier group, you've got it with you. So I'm going to put a little dab of oil on this spring and get it installed in the bolt. Okay, with a little bit of lube on the spring, got the spring installed back in place, and now it's just an issue of getting the ejector installed, and I'm going to have to repeat this process where I use this tool to depress the ejector so I can put the roll pin in. And I'm going to do that off camera because it's rather boring to watch. Okay, we got the roll pin popped back into place on the bolt, on the bolt ejector. So that's installed. Now I just have to move on to installing the ejector, and we'll be done with this project. So of course, before I install it, I'm going to use some of the machine gun lube and put a little oil on everything. And off camera, I'm going to tap in the roll pin, and we'll be done. Alright, got the bolt carrier group reassembled and everything oiled up, and it's ready to go back into my firearm. One last thing I should note about the 5-coil extractor spring. Sprinco says on their website that use of this type of spring may indent or mar the brass casing, and if you're heavily into reloading, they state that this may not be a good choice for you. So in that situation, they recommend their 4-coil extractor spring used in conjunction with a Viton O-ring. So I'm just throwing that out there in case you guys are considering this type of an upgrade and you reload your brass and you do it, and then you start seeing, you know, the rim of the brass getting chewed up or marred up. So that's what they say, and I don't reload myself, so I don't particularly care about that. So that's not really an issue to me. But if it is to you, you may want to consider the 4-coil. They're 4-coil extractor spring. In the comments, or in the description field of video, I'm going to put the website addresses so you guys can visit the site directly if you want to order these parts and read up more about them.